In this lesson, we will learn a simplified method of constructing and drawing an ear. First of all, the ear is made up of a series of folds that are defined by the cartilage underneath, as well as the fleshy tissue up on the top, especially up in the ridge, and down here in the lobe. If you feel your own lobe, it's very, very fleshy down here. But if we break up the key features down to simple shapes, we'll be able to quickly identify the key areas. Now I've created a couple of separate layers, one for the study of form and one for our sketch. We'll go ahead and hide this one and we'll focus on the form right now. And I'll go ahead and hide what we don't need to see. Now first of all, if you imagine the outer edge of the ear forms almost a C shape. It's kind of wider at the top and tapered down towards the bottom. So let's go ahead and draw that in really quickly. Right about from here, a C shape. Oops, I'll make it just a little bit bigger. And down to here it tapers off. Alright, now on the inner rim of the ear we'll find another bit of a C shape that starts down lower and kind of follows almost all the way around. So let's go ahead and draw that in from right about here. Follow that same line. We can thin it out in a bit, but overall it'll have that rounded C shape. Now if you imagine, follow this line right here, you can imagine that there's an implied line. If we continue that line, we'll find another little piece of cartilage that sticks out right where the face and the ear kind of come together. You can feel there's a bit of cartilage right in here. Let's go ahead and draw that in. If you can imagine, it's a backwards C shape in a way. Sometimes it's a little bit more defined. If you can imagine, there's two little P's right in here. Sometimes you'll find that's really defined and it'll square this off a little bit more. But overall, it's a rounded shape and it's not always exposed, but it's a good thing to keep in mind. Now if we follow this same C shape, we can bring this down just a little bit further and we'll find a U shape down here. Might be a little bit too big. I'll go ahead and make that smaller. Alright. And it'll kind of wrap up around to the side. Now if you're wearing earbud headphones, that headphone will, the earpiece will kind of fall right in here in this pocket. So if you can imagine, it's pretty deep in here. Let's say the cord will come out right here. So you can kind of imagine it's pretty deep in that pocket right there, and that's where our ear tunnel, the ear canal, starts to form right in here. So that's a really deep area. It's really important to keep in mind. Now here comes the fun part. In the center of the ear, there's a Y-shaped cartilage. This cartilage raises up and it forms a Y shape in the shadows that it creates. And if you can keep in mind, it's kind of a rounded Y shape, kind of looping around to the side. Let's go ahead and draw that in really quickly. Kind of a fun little shape in there. And one thing to keep in mind is these elements vary in size and position. For example, this Y cartilage in here, it might come down further and it might be closer together. The Y fold might be right in here. So it might be a little bit more defined. And in some it might be scooping far apart. And in some it might not even be visible because it'll be so smoothed out it's hard to see. But overall you will see all these elements in every ear that you'll find. Okay, let's go ahead and start building up our sketch on top of these notes. I'll go ahead and select our sketch layer and change the color. I'll go ahead and change the opacity just a little bit. I like to start building up shadows. Alright, so now I'll go ahead and hide what we don't have to see. Now it's helpful to start building in the shadows because you can really get an idea for the overall shape and the details of the ear. So let's go ahead and start building in just the shadows, the darkest elements. And right here in this scoop we'll see a lot of shadow. We don't have to bring it so thick. We can kind of push that back. Alright. Up all the way around in here. And all the way around. Kind of getting a little bit lighter. It's not too dark in this area because the light will be kind of coming in this side, but it will be over here definitely a little bit darker. Okay, and now we can go ahead and fill in the shadows for the indentations of that Y piece of cartilage. You can imagine it coming right into there, kind of scooping out a pocket. Alright, and also over here, follow that one down. The deepest shadow will be right in here. You just kind of smooth it out. Round out this piece of cartilage just a little bit. And deepen this pocket just a little bit more with a little bit darker. Alright, And we'll kind of fill in that shadow right in here where that white cartilage will leave a little bit more shadow in here. Just a lighter shadow in there. Okay. And we can even define this cartilage if we wanted to. Sometimes it has a little bit more shadow right about here where it continues to wrap around. We won't add too much to it. And following that tail down right into here, there's a little pocket. The deepest part, again, would be right in here where that ear canal would start. So let's go ahead and darken up that ear canal. Entrance to the eardrum, where all the sound kind of funnels in towards that hole in there. It'll be pretty dark in here because it's a pretty deep pocket in here. Kind of getting deeper as we go towards the canal. And this piece of cartilage right in here, it still has a little bit of a depth to it. So we can add just shadows just a little bit because it's coming up a little bit farther than the ear hole or the ear canal entrance. Complete the shadows in here. And kind of soften up this because it is a funnel. It is pulling that audio right into the side. Okay. We can go ahead and round this out. This piece of cartilage normally sticks out the farthest away, so it will cast a little bit of a shadow right in here, so we can go ahead and break that up just a little bit more. Cast a little bit more shadow in there as it moves into the ear funnel. Alright. Just a little bit more shadow over here to add a little bit of depth. Okay, and I'll go ahead and thin out this ridge up here. We'll just go ahead and straighten this out. Now the way the ear sits on the head, it tends to sit at an angle. Not quite this much of an angle, but we can go ahead and fix that up. I'll thin this top part out. It doesn't have to be so thick. Now the shape of the outer rim of the ear, sometimes you'll see a little bit of definition right in here. That might be a big piece of cartilage just kind of folding over as it's wrapping around. But overall, it'll be a nice, smooth, rounded shape. And again, every ear is different. It's like a signature, almost like a thumbprint. Per person, it's different. We kind of keep this in mind. Right down here. Round that out a little bit more. Give it more of a fleshy feel. Okay. So now we have our basic shape kind of plotted in. We can go ahead and hide our form. But really quickly, I'd like to make one note of something. If we go back to our form layer, if you notice, most ears, let's say the top of the ear is right about here, the bottom right about here, oops, and down here. If we broke this into thirds, we'll find that usually the bottom of the lobe is all 1/3 of the ear. It won't be too thin or too thick. Of course, this all varies per person. Sometimes it will be very thin. But on average, it's the bottom third section of the ear. And the top third, if you notice, is where the top of the ear kind of connects to the face. It's another helpful tool to keep in mind the overall measurement of the ear as a whole. I'll go ahead and hide that again. We can finish adding in just a little bit of shadows in here. Sometimes that cartilage sticks out just a little bit further, and the lobe, since it's so fleshy, will have a little bit of an indentation in here. You can kind of define that just a little bit. And again, there might be a piece of cartilage right in here, so we can go ahead and define that shadow a little bit more. Alright. So as you can see, we can really quickly and very simply get a nice, effective ear shape. Nice believable shape, especially by adding in shadows and more midtones and overall definition to the characteristics of the individual ear. And all this is done really based off of a few simple lines that we can really use to help us measure it out. Again, we want to keep that C shape right here, the overall C shape first of all, that C shape in the cartilage right in here, that U down here, and the cartilage right in here that might show a little bit of definition. And the most important feature I find is the Y. It's also the funnest part. And again, these do vary per person in measurement, but overall, these simple lines can get us a nice result rather quickly.